Hi, this is Miles, and this is my project, History of the Automobiles. So it all started in the 15th centuries when Portuguese arrived in China to interact about how they could create a machine that could move on its own, which is the vehicle, because at that time the only means of transportation was the horse-drawn carriages. So their plan actually worked, and they were able to create small steam-powered engines, and later on they were fully developed into engine powered automobiles, which was examples like the Maybach, the 1901 Maybach, and the Model T that Ford built. And although the blueprints was actually perfected in Germany and France in 18th centuries by great men like Nicholas Otto, Gottlieb Daimler, Karl Benz, Emil Levasseur. They were the ones who perfected this innovation, and it was under a monarchy government by then, because it was 1800s and there wasn't anything like democracy in Europe. So when they created the 1901 Benz that was designed by Maybach Wilhelm for a German motor company known as the Daimler Motor and Gesellschaft, and it actually got credit for being the first modern auto car in all essentials. So Americans then took over the industry in the first half of the 20th century. Normally they actually give credit for the innovation to Henry Ford, because he actually innovated the mass production techniques that other people picked up, like the General Motors and Chrysler. They picked it up by 1920s, and the manufacturer actually funneled their resources into war, which was the World War II. So after the World War II, Japan took over and they became the leading automakers by 1980. And Henry Ford created, before the Japan took over, Henry Ford created some models like the Model N, which was quite expensive because it was like the toy for the rich people. And later on he realized now it's quite expensive and people cannot afford it, so he created a common one which was for all people in all classes, the Model T on the left side, the black one. And there's a video down here that shows how it was the Model T changed America and the world. So when Henry Ford created this machine, they thought it was a toy for the rich, because normal people couldn't afford it. Common people like you and I couldn't afford it by then because they were quite expensive. And it later on gave these rich people the freedom to travel when they wanted to travel and wherever they wanted to travel, because that was then it wasn't really a common means of transportation, but it was quite rare to common people. So these rich people had the freedom to travel anywhere and everywhere they wanted to go. How it impacted the world society and when? So by 1930s, other countries around the world then had the opportunity to afford the Model T, which Henry Ford created. But before it became accessible to the middle income and general population, Henry Ford did two specific things. He reduced the price of the cars, and he paid his workers, I think, $5, which was quite a huge sum of money by then. So they were able to buy their cars they produced, which increased the mass population of the machine. So in the US today, we all know there are new cars that have been coming up, and they've actually expanded worldwide. Even some countries in Africa are able to produce cars. Some countries in Africa are able to produce cars, and in the US electric cars are now being produced. but the gasoline cars are still on top of the market, because recently I think the US government banned some specific electric car companies from manufacturing their cars, because when their cars are produced, the petroleum companies might be affected, which will reduce petroleum in the country, and yeah, which will actually reduce petroleum in the country, and these companies will be shut down. But it's also a good thing if these companies were allowed to manufacture their cars, because gasoline cars actually emit smoke and CO2, which is harmful for our body since we breathing oxygen. So when these carbon dioxide mix with the oxygen, it's quite difficult to breathe, because people have asthma and other lung diseases. So personally, how the car impacted me, or the automobile impacted me, it has made my transportation easier. We all know, let's think about this, if none of our parents had cars and there were no school buses, why would I want to walk almost 4 miles to school? Because I live in Laurel, Maryland. Why would I want to walk almost 4 miles to school every morning? By the time I get to school, I'll be really tired and I'll have nothing in my head when I'm trying to learn. So it has given me the privilege to try to go anywhere I want to go and anytime I want to, because it's time convenient, and it has given me the privilege to have my own license and know how it feels to sit behind the wheel of an automobile, which I think is great and all of you think is great. So yeah, and below is my favorite car, the Mercedes CLS, yeah, 65 AMG. It's quite inexpensive, but that's my aim, that's what I want, and I'm working towards that. So that's my favorite car. So although it's a good invention and it has advantages, it also has some issues. Yeah, it has high rate automobile accidents, which also has emissions, which also produces emissions, which pollutes the air we're breathing, and carbon monoxides are produced from these cars. So this is the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something great from it. Thank you, merci, gracias. Once again, my name is Miles. Thank you.